Hey folks, Captain Kurt Pfister, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about pre-kiting your wing, and we're going to tell you what that is and what the benefits are to doing that. Folks, this is not a training video so that you can take this training video and go out and launch a powered paraglider on your own. Please don't do that. Don't buy anybody's videos, no matter who they are or what they say their videos can do, and use this as a tool to go flying. You need instruction, you need quality instruction, you need somebody there to show you hands-on in the field what you're doing and what you're not doing right. It's one thing to look at a video and try to retain it all and then go out into a field and practice. And that's what this is done for, but this is not meant to train you. I train free of charge in all 50 states. I will train you anywhere, anytime. It doesn't matter. You can come to one of our locations in Ohio or Florida. Everybody else is charging $2,500 for training. We don't charge anything. You can take as much as you want. There's no price tag. There's no time limit. So let me work with you and show you how to do this. This video is just for the after, maybe people that have already been trained and they just want to refresh and relive it in their mind and just kind of do it. So right now I'm going to talk to you about pre-kiting. I like to pre-kite the wing. Pre-kiting does a lot of stuff, and the word pre-kite means before I even connect to this glider, I want to know that it's okay to connect to this glider. Pre-kiting is going to allow you to know whether it's too much wind to fly, whether it's good enough to fly. It also enables you to straighten out your lines, straighten out the wing, inspect it all before you tie in. If you go, there's a lot of people that don't even teach this method. If their students had learned my method, many of them would be a lot safer today. When you connect up to this glider and it's too much wind, and you don't know it, say you're a novice student, you come out here and you just connect up without pre-kiting, you're going to find out too late when you start getting dragged across the field, sometimes ripped off the ground and slammed down to the ground. We've seen a lot of different things happen, not here at my training, because I teach my students to pre-kite. There was a guy out in California going under super training. He'd be alive today if he knew my method of pre-kiting. But instead he relied on his instructor to tell him it was too much wind, but his instructor didn't feel that it was too much wind. This man was out in 16 to 24 mile an hour winds. He was taking super training. His instructor allowed him to tie in to winds that strong. Why he did, I have no idea. But even if this guy knew about my video about pre-kiting, he could have pre-kited his wing and he'd be alive today, because he would have found out that it was way too much wind for that day to even consider tying into even a training harness. This guy was killed in training on Imperial Beach. He was torn off the ground and he was slammed into some rocks and he's dead. He left a wife and two beautiful kids behind because of it. And not only is this sad just for that reason, but it's also going to start ruining the sport. This type of thing shouldn't be happening, and it can easily be avoided. And this is one of the ways that it can be avoided. If you pre-kite your wing, it will never take you by surprise. You'll be able to do so many things from it. And the first thing we want to do is to find out, is it too much? Well, new students don't know if it's too much, and if you pre-kite, you'll be able to do that. And so the first thing we're going to do here, we've already got our wing laid out here, and I've already stretched out the lines. Now, if you refer back to my other video of how to pack your wing up, normally you won't have any tangles or any twists in the lines, and it'll be ready to fly pretty much when you pull it out of the bag. And a couple things that we do is we line it up into the wind as best we can. Now, when you come out to a field and you're picking out and you're laying out your wing and picking out your spot, you want to see plenty of field ahead of you and off to the right or left, depending on the torque of your motor. I like to grab a little grass and trickle that grass and to get a general idea of where that wind is coming from. And then I like to pull my lines and kind of turn them towards the wind, and so that I see a straight line. Three things have to be in line for the wing to come up good: the wind direction, the pilot, and the very center of the wing. If there's a dog leg in any of that, the wing will come up crooked. So whether you're flying a trike out there or whether you're foot launching and you're wondering why you're having problems with your forward launches, this is one of the reasons that so many people struggle. If you pre-kite, you're going to not only eliminate a lot of these launch problems, but you're also going to be in a safe wing. You'll know whether it's time to fly or not. And the first thing we'll talk about is how to do that. You're going to get your line straightened out. You're going to grab your A risers, which go up to the nose of the wing. These risers have 4 different sets of risers on them. They start off as one. This is the connection point where it's going to connect you to the glider, whether you're in a trike or whether you're foot launching. they break apart into 4 sections: the A risers, the B risers, the C risers, and the D risers, and of course the steering. The first thing I like to do after I get my wing out of the bag and stretch it out predominantly into the wind is to pull up my A's and separate them from the rest of them. I like to hold them up in the air, and if there were any lines over the top of them like that, I could just pull those off of there like that. I want to see that these A lines are free and clear every time. The next ones I'm going to check are the brake lines. I'm going to make sure that the brake lines go through that pulley. There's a little pulley, and that acts as a stopper in the air. We want to make sure that this toggle didn't fall through one of the other lines when we were packing it away the last time. That could be pretty detrimental to you when you get flying, because what will happen is if you didn't catch that, and by the way, when these are not in your hands, they need to be stowed back in the little magnets here that hold them there. Because if you just get in the habit of just dropping these and they fall through another line, the wing will still steer and still kite for the launch. Once you get in the air, you'll pull a brake and pull a turn, and that line with your body weight is jammed right down into the crotch of these other lines. And since your body weight is hanging from those lines, you'll pull a turn and the wing will stay locked into a turn. So we always want to check our brake lines and make sure that those are free and clear before we tie in. So that one's clear. My A's are clear. Check this brake line. I want to see that it's going through the magnet. If you want to bring that camera over here for a second, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. And you just zoom in on that pulley right there. We'll just hold one of the risers here. And you'll notice that it goes through the pulley. Nice and clean. Just zoom in right on this area right here. There you go. It hasn't fallen through any other area like that. This is what I'm talking about. This is what you want to look for. You want to make sure that it's not like that. Because when your body weight is suspended from these lines, that steering line will be wrapped in there just like that. And it'll stay locked into a turn. So get that out of there and make sure that they're free and clear, and you'll never have that issue. You'll never have to be worried about it. If it ever does happen to you, don't panic. You'll stay locked in that turn. Reach above the pulley, pull the line up, and pull the handle back up to the stopper. You can either, there's a couple things you could do now at this point. You could use the other steering to get yourself back towards the field and steer by doing circles and coming back towards it, and then coming in for a landing. It'll still flare, it'll still land you, or you can fly a little bit higher and just be aware of where the ground is. Get plenty of distance above the trees and above everything else, and you can fish it through the lines if you can reach it. These have nice short risers on the equipment I sell on the Power Atlas. Some wings, like the Mac Pair, I don't really care for the risers. They got long risers, and sometimes you can't even reach up there to get the lines through there. But so that's the thing you want to check first, is your A lines and your brakes. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pre-kite the wing. We're going to grab the A's in our right hand like this. We're going to grab just the D's like that. All the other ones are loose. And what I'm trying to do here is I want to make sure a couple different things. And the reason, again, I'm pre-kiting it, I get so many benefits from this. First of all, it's one thing to come out here and trickle a little grass and get an idea of where the wind's coming from, but to have the wing actually weather vane directly into the wind means that you're not going to have to overwork when you pull that wing up. So many times guys have failed launches, and trike guys have failed launches, is because they're not getting directly into the wind. I was watching an instructor online. It happens to be the same instructor, but his student was pulling up the wing, and the wing came up and it went to the left. And so he had his student turn to the left and pull this, and pull this way, and run this way and pull this one, and weight shift this one. If you use my method, you'll never have to do that. The first thing is, if that guy's wing on this beach, I was watching this video and I was like, are you kidding me? This guy was exhausted and all he had on was a training harness. What's he going to do when he sticks a 60-pound motor on his back? So this turn left, pull right, pull left, turn right, and all this running back and forth to try to get centered underneath the wing can all be avoided if you pre-kite the way I teach. By pre-kiting, it's automatically going to get centered with the wind so that the next time you pull it up, it's going to come up even. The reason it's not coming up even is because you don't have those three components in line that I talked about earlier. The wind direction, the pilot, and the center of the wing. If you have an imaginary line through the three of those, you can't have anything but success. And you wonder why people are failing their trike launches and they're having to work so much. If you lay a wing out ready to go, that means less work for the pilot of having to run here, run there, try to steer it and try to get it under control to be under a centered wing for the takeoff. And you want to be under a centered wing for the takeoff. If you're foot launching, you can be pulled off balance. If you're trike launching, you could actually roll the trike if you have a lousy trike. Some of the trikes roll really easy. We have one that kind of self-corrects, so it doesn't really do that. It's called the fly pod. Check out my videos upon that. It's the hardest trike to roll, but you can still roll a trike if you don't get that thing directly into the wind. So we want the best chance of having the wing come off the ground evenly right from the start. And the best way to do that is to pre-kite. The other thing that it's going to help you do is it's going to allow you to inspect your lines. You want to inspect your equipment. This is the most important part of your equipment. The motor is the least important part of your equipment. It's just mostly an inconvenience or it's an expense when it breaks. But it should never be a safety issue when your motor quits. And the reason for that is because the smart pilot will always leave a landing field within glide of where he's at. So anytime he's flying, he is constantly updating his landing zones and saying, where would I land now? And of course, the higher he goes, the safer he goes. And the more experience that he has as a pilot, the better he can land in a smaller area as he learns how to spot land and get good. His fields start off big and they go down to very small. So when he's flying, he's constantly updating. But the most important part of the equipment is not the motor, it is the glider. If your motor fails, you float down. If your wing fails, you've got some trouble. So we want to inspect our wing, we want to inspect our line, and by pre-kiting it and having it off the ground, boy, we can just scan our eyes over every line. We can see something that sticks out. Your eyes will just automatically gravitate towards anything that's not right with the lines. You run your eyes up and down these lines, and you'll see if there's a knot. You'll see if there's a stick caught in it. You'll see if the line is frayed. You'll see if seams are opening up on the wing, and you'll be able to inspect it rather than just leaving it on the ground or bringing it into the living room of your house and going over all the lines. That's a good way, but sometimes you can miss stuff. But with this way, all the lines will be tight. The wing will be tight. I actually discovered a wing. I used to fly Mac Para wings, and I had two seams open up on the top of their wings, and twice. Had I not inspected the wing, I might not have caught it. Had I not pre-flighted it or pre-kited it, I might have missed it. But I had seams that were unraveling on the wing and opening up. I've never had that happen again, and I don't want to happen again, but if it does happen, I'll spot it immediately because I'm pre-kiting. I'm also going to be able to, when I get this off the ground, I'm going to see it weather vane. I can steer this wing by grabbing the A's and grabbing the D's, both of the D's and the brakes in my left hand. When the wing comes up, if one side is too high, let's say the left side is too high, I can take this and I can put a little pressure on that left side by pulling it that way. If that side's coming up a little faster, I can pull it to this way and steer it. The object that we're shooting for here while we pre-kite is to get the wing flying level. We want it flying level. When it's flying level, that tells you you have it directly into the wind. So anytime you're pre-kiting, remember the goal. Get it flying level. And once you get it up in the air and you start to steer it till it gets level. Once you lay it down, you read what it does when you lay it down. If you see one side hit the ground and then the other, that's the way it's going to come up. If this side hits the ground and then this side, that's the way it's going to come up. But if while we're pre-kiting we can get it up and get it flying level, when we lay it down, if we can get both sides to hit the ground and let it roll back, we'll have a wing that the next time we pull is going to come up absolutely perfect. And what that's going to mean is you're not going to have to work so hard to pull off those forward launches anymore. Your reverse launches are going to be amazing, and you won't have to correct a lot on the run trying to keep your balance with a 50 to 60 pound motor on your back and the torque of the motor. You'll have a wing that came up and wasn't a factor in pulling you off center. And so if you get this down, it'll really be a benefit. The other thing that it'll do is while you're pre-kiting, you'll decide whether you're going to do a forward launch or a reverse launch. Well, what am I looking for? Well, if it's, some guys will come out here and it's a windy day and they'll say, geez, is that too much wind? Well, how do you know? Well, the last thing you want to do at that point, especially if your experience level is low, is to go ahead and tie in and then pull it off the ground only to find out that it was too much. Because now you're going for a wild ride, brother. You're going to be dragged across that field. You could get ripped off the ground like the guy that was in super training out in Imperial Beach and get killed. And it can kill you. You need to respect it. You don't want to take this out in too much wind. The nice thing about it, if it is too much wind, you can simply, while you're pulling it up, and I'll show you this, you can pull this wing up. And if it was too much wind, I can just drop my A's and I'm pulling by the D's from the back. Let me do it again. I'm going to grab my A's here. Got my back to the wind. I'm going to draw those A's towards me while I let off the brakes a little bit. Okay, now our wind has kind of died. Now I'm steering it. I'm trying to get it flying level. And you'll see me moving just the bottom ones. There you go. Now this wing is pretty much staying up there by itself. I've got it under control. It's flying level. The camera's behind me. Can you see that wing in there? Okay. And then I'm trying to get it to land both sides level. And of course we did that. Once we get it flying level, we know that the next time we pull it, look how it's going to come up. Perfect. You see that? Comes up absolutely perfect. So this training method that I see this instructor doing, and many other instructors for that matter, of running this way, running that way, braking this way, weight shifting this way to try to get under the wing, they're working their students like a dog. You don't need to do that. Pre-kite your wing, and the next time you pull it up, watch how it comes up. Look at this. And keep in mind, this isn't even at a beach. This is just over the land, which is the hardest place to launch. Beach flying is great, and the beach will give you a good taste of kiting, but the problem with it is most times the air is so steady that it does all the work for you. Well, that's real fun, but if you train at a beach and learn at a beach, you're going to have a false sense of knowing how to kite. It's the guys that learn on, because as soon as you go to the land and the wind is moving a little bit this way, moving that way, it's on, it's off, it's not as steady, you're going to learn to compensate for that on the land. And you'll become a better pilot and a better launching student if you learn over the land. Beach flying is great. It's a lot of fun, but it's a little deceptive on the student. He thinks he's walking away with a lot of experience. He's really not getting a whole lot because of the amount of work that the wind does for him. But again, let's take a look at this. We're going to grab our A's, grab our D's, and I'm also looking at how well the wing comes up. If it comes up nice and easy, now you see it weather vaning, but I'm keeping it under control. You notice it has changed direction now. Our direction was this way. It has changed by 90 degrees. This is what I was talking about pre-kiting. People always ask me, hey, Captain, what's the best time of day to go flying? There is no set time of day. Definitely we don't fly in midday. Midday can cause collapses because of the thermals. We fly mornings and evenings unless we're at a beach. And then we can fly all day if the water's coming off the water. It's usually very steady, and as long as it's not too strong, you can fly all day at it. There's no thermals. But one way to tell, they always ask me, like, is it okay to fly around this time? There is no set time. Each day is different. Today we have a lot of overcast. The winds are light. They're a little bit variable, but now we just saw this wing change direction by 90 degrees. That automatically, listen folks, if you see your glider change direction while you're pre-kiting by 45 degrees, it's already telling you it's going to be a bumpy ride. If you see it changing by a 90 degrees margin, it's going to be a holy crap kind of flying bumpy ride. And if you see it changing by 180, you can expect that you're probably going to be getting collapses, especially if it's a stronger wind in each direction. On the lighter days, you can maybe get away with it, but if you want to avoid collapses altogether, I don't get them. We have a flawless safety record. I'm nearing 1,000 students at the time this video was taped, and we have a flawless safety record. This is the stuff that I try to teach the guys. I read my wing. Not only when it's up in the air am I reading it for whether I'm going to do a forward or reverse launch, and that's based on how easy does it come up. I'm looking at my wing. So pre-kiting again, let's recap. Pre-kiting is going to allow me to inspect my lines. While it's up in the air, I inspect my lines. I inspect the wing. I get positive wind direction for where it's going to go. I decide forward or reverse launch based on how easy the wing is coming up. And if it's coming up easy with just a few backwards walking steps, then I'll do my reverse launch. If it's not coming up very easy and I have to run fast backwards, I'm going to do a forward launch when that motor's on my back. When the motor's on your back, you can only move backwards so fast. And so if without the motor we're pre-kiting and we have a hard time getting the wing up, it's pretty obvious that it's going to be a forward launch day. So you're deciding forward or reverse launch while you're pre-kiting. You're also deciding whether you're going to launch at all. When that wing is up in the air, if you see it up and it's flying real good, and then all of a sudden it pulls over here, and then all of a sudden it pulls up back, and then it goes over to this side, and then it's changing direction. And maybe it's steadier, maybe it's even doing it real slow, but it's changing direction that much. It's not good to fly. If you see it pulling and it's flying steady, and all of a sudden it pulls really hard, and then it starts to die off, and then it pulls really hard, and then it dies off. It's telling you that up there is going to be nasty. You don't want to be up in it. And the old pilot adage is it's better to be on the ground wishing you were flying than to be flying and wishing you were on the ground. And you take it up in some of that air, your wish will come true. You're going to be on the ground, and it's going to happen real fast. So what we want to do is respect what we got, respect the weather. There's always a better day to fly. These are things that I'll teach you in person. If you come out to my training, I'll work with you. I'll show this stuff to you. Don't use this as a training method. And let's pull it up a few more times so you can watch how I steer it. Kind of zoom in on that a little bit and watch what I'm doing. And then we'll hope to hear from you real soon. Okay, that's changing direction. I'm just going to think out loud while I'm pre-kiting. Each time I pull it up, I try to get it level by steering, using my D's to steer. Okay, there it is. That's getting pretty level. I have a little pressure on the left side, and as it hits the ground, I step in and I let my hands roll forward so that that nose rolls back. You'll notice all those open cells are ready to grab air. You don't want to start your wing from that position because you're robbing yourself of a good launch. You want to start with it laying back. Let me show you again. Okay, it changed direction again. Step in right as the bottom seam hits. You step in and look. And when you're pre-kiting and you have it up in the air like that, when you do lay it down, it's also giving you a cheater spot to stand. And by cheater spot is you had it up in the air, you had it flying level, and you set it down. Right where you're standing is where you want to stand with the motor on your back. So that when you tie in for your forward or tie in for your reverse, you know right where to stand. A lot of guys will stretch out their wing, lay one riser here, one riser over there. They walk over, they pick this one up. They walk over, they pick that one up. And then they don't really exactly get right into that dead nut center again, and they're maybe a foot or two off. And believe it or not, just a foot to the right or a foot to the left of center, whether you're triking or whether you're foot launching just a little bit off center, puts a dog leg in that component, that three-factor component I talk about. The wind, the pilot, and the center of the wing. If I'm off-centered, we now have a dog leg in that component. We want to see an imaginary line through the three of us, and when we do, that wing is going to come up. If it's too much wind while I'm pre-kiting, I am definitely not going to tie into a training harness or my glider. If I see it changing direction, it is not time to fly yet. I always tell students that if you're in the beginning and you're a new student, if you're a foot launcher, stick with evening flights. The grass isn't wet, the dew's not on it. It's easier to launch when you don't have the extra weight of the water on it. And you want to go out around midday to start pre-kiting, maybe a couple hours before you know, because in the evening it starts dying down. You'll start going out pre-kiting your wing and you'll see it change in direction from time to time. When you start to see it come from the same direction, it's starting to tell you that it's getting time to launch. Take advantage of that wind because it's easier to launch. It's steadier, you get off the ground quicker. You can use a reverse launch, which in my opinion is the best thing to learn first. Forward launches, I teach both and I want you to learn both. but forward launches are the hardest. And I have a forward launch video on my website if you want to see that one as well. But stick with the reverse launch first before really going into the forward launches. Now, I understand some places don't have a lot of wind and you're really forced to do forward launches, and you should practice both of them. But if you learn the reverse launch first and how to bring it up and then turn around on your wing, you're going to see and feel a good wing. You're gonna feel the pressure in your brakes. You'll develop a memory with the pressure that you feel on the brakes, and when you see a bad wing, you'll also feel the inconsistency in the pressure on the brakes for that. So now when you switch back, and then now after you've had so much practice doing the reverse, when you do your forwards, they're going to be much easier because you'll almost have like eyes in the back of your head. With the forward launch, you can't see it until it's too late, and then you got to get out of all your equipment. You got to disconnect your wing, disconnect the motor, take off your harness, go fix the wing, get back in the harness, get back in the motor, get back in the wing, try it again. Now you're a little bit more fatigued, more prone to another failed launch. If you use my method, you'll have less failed launches, whether it's forward or reverse, but it's my suggestion that you stick with the reverse as long as possible. When you see that wing at the end of the day start to become steady, and you haven't, it's not just a 2-minute, but when you start to see it become permanently steady for the evening, take advantage of that air, get up in the air, and while you're up there, the wind will usually be calming down and getting better and smoother and smoother and smoother for the whole rest of the night of flying. In the morning, if you wait until you have enough wind to pre-kite, usually by that time it's getting to the point where the thermals are kicking on for the day and it's time to start getting out of the air. So mornings are predominantly for forward launches or for experienced pilots that already know what they're doing. They don't struggle as much. I hope this has been a help to you. Remember, this is just an instructional video. It's not for training purposes. Come in, let me train you for free. Check our website out, check our other videos out, subscribe to our channel, and if there's anything I can do, we answer the phones from 7 in the morning until midnight, and for the last 18 years. And we do that 7 days a week. We train 7 days a week, and again, we do train in all 50 states, and we don't charge you $2,500 for the training. After you spend that much amount on equipment, we think you ought to have unlimited training. It's not a 3-day course, it's not a 5-day course, it's not a 10-day course. It's whatever it takes you. Everybody progresses at a different rate, and I will work with you personally for your needs and for what you need, because everybody is different. And so there should be no price tag, no time limit on training, and I know that pisses a lot of other instructors off. So be it. Come in at us. We have a perfect safety record, and we'd love to see you. Hope to be part of our Flight Junkies family. Thanks for joining me.